everyone, I'm Michael Serapio. Well, the Federal Liberal Caucus had one more reason to celebrate last night, gathered for their annual holiday party that also marks the end of the fall sitting, when the Prime Minister took to the stage and introduced the newest member of the Liberal team.
Some may have just joined our party. Some, like literally, just joined our party. So let's give a warm welcome to our newest member of the Liberal Party, Michael Maw, the MP for Union Markinville.
Wow, such a big welcome. Thank you. Thank you. All I want to say is Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a great 2026 coming to all of you. Thank you, and enjoy the party tonight.
Well, with that, let's bring in the bureau chiefs. Robert Fife is the Ottawa bureau chief for the Globe and Mail, Tonda MacCharles, the Ottawa bureau chief for the Toronto Star, and Joël-Denis Bellavance, the Ottawa bureau chief for LaPresse. Hello to the three of you.
I couldn't help but catch the Prime Minister misstating the GTA riding of a new one in Union Markinville. No one ever heard of.
As one who had his high school years in South Markham, just south of Unionville,
you got it.
I smiled. I smiled. I'll say. Okay, but listen, you know, we've been fair to say that we've all been speaking to Liberals ever since Chris D'Entremont crossed the floor on Budget Day, right? And we've all been reaching out. We'd heard the speculation that there would be more to come. But did you expect this to happen yesterday, Bob?
I certainly didn't expect it, and to be honest, I didn't even know there was an MP called Michael Maw of the Conservatives, because they keep most of their MPs hidden from journalists. You know, there certainly was talk after Mr. Chris D'Entremont left and Matt Genereux decided he would basically vacate the Conservative Party, even though he's staying on as a Conservative MP, but it's not showing up. We were told by a lot of Liberals that they were working on people, but that's been weeks now, and we sort of thought, well, maybe this is not going to happen. That Mr. Poilievre has managed to keep his caucus intact, but now that Mr. Maw has come out there, and in fact, the government House Leader Stephen McKinnon says there are others. We're talking to others, and the Prime Minister suggested that last night as well. Stay tuned, basically. So I imagine there will be other Conservative MPs, and I think it makes it a lot easier now for a Conservative MP to do this, because if they're one short of a majority government, if one or two other Conservatives cross the floor, and there may be more, they are guaranteed 4 years, basically, of a majority government. And so they have time to get comfortable with the constituency as a Liberal MP. And if the government is successful with majority government and the transformative agenda that the Prime Minister wants to bring in, they have a very good chance of getting elected in 4 years' time.
If people like what's there. Right. We'll get to a couple of those points a bit, Bob. But Tonda, a surprise here, because again, it has been weeks since we were picking up the phones trying to find out someone to cross the floor.
It's not just us who was surprised. You know, the senior officials, many of the senior officials in the government's own ranks were shocked. They didn't even know who Michael Maw was last night. You know, it was kept very tightly, the information.
The best loved Liberal now, by the by. Just saying.
And I think that, everybody's going to be more intently watching if there are going to be other floor crossers. I think some of the same calculations come into play for anyone contemplating it, which is to say, they can, if they get to majority level, then they have 4 years, or they conceivably could face an electorate within a much shorter time, you know. So I think that for the MPs thinking about it, they have to be either both confident that they can win their riding as a Liberal, and so if you're out west in, say, Alberta or Saskatchewan, you don't like the way the Conservatives are going, you might not feel comfortable that you can win re-election as a Liberal. The other consideration, I think, is, or you have to be comfortable thinking this is your last kick at the can and maybe you're not going to run for re-election. So I think those things are still at play, but big coup for the Carney Liberals last night. It absolutely juiced their Christmas party and look, they're sailing in now to the parliamentary break. Just one vote shy of a majority. That's really quite something.
Yeah, it is quite something. Joël-Denis?
What I do find interesting is what is the root cause of those MPs crossing the floor. It's not politics. It is policies that is pushing them to go on the other side because they like what the government is introducing as policies, economic policies, very much focused on that. Law and order as well is attracting them. And also the fact that they feel that Mr. Carney, over the last 6 months, has demonstrated as a serious leader trying to reduce our economic dependency towards the United States and diversify our trade. And I think the latest agreement between Alberta and Ottawa also, I think, contributed to the thinking of many MPs, and one that pushed him over the other side. But it's policies, not politics, that is driving those.
Well, is it, though, just policy? I mean, let's face it, a lot of the ones who've crossed have complained about the style of politics and leadership
of their own leader. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, the politics of their own leader, but policies put forward by the Carney government.
Okay, and I'll get to that in a moment. But, you know, part of this, too, is a bit of what you were talking about before there, Joël-Denis. The policies of the Prime Minister, Mr. Carney, has brought the Liberals now more centre, right? and occupies a space that could have been occupied by red Tories, blue Liberals, red Tories. And interesting, it's Chris D'Entremont that's crossed over, as well as now Michael Maw, ridings that arguably, if they vote Conservative, it's on economic grounds. They're battleground ridings, but they do vote mainly on economic issues, and they now occupy the same economic space. So to me, if you're looking for the next MP to cross over, which I've spoken to a couple of Liberals, that action is going on right now, and as you said, we heard that from the House Leader today. It seems to be that those are the Conservative MPs you need to be watching, those that barely won their ridings in the last vote, but also might be in tune with the economic policies of this Prime Minister.
Watch the House of Commons. Go back and look at the House of Commons when Pierre Poilievre is up on his feet sloganeering about the Prime Minister is on a vacation when he's actually meeting billionaire investors to invest in Canada, or he's trying to accuse the Prime Minister of somehow trying to profit off of Brookfield, which he was the chair of it before he became Prime Minister, which is one of Canada's most successful companies. It's a $1 trillion global company. He's not profiting off this. But if you look at their faces, they're not a happy bunch. Now, you've got people around and they're cheering and they love all this sort of stuff, but the more centrist red Tories in that, and there aren't that many of them left in that caucus, they're not cheering. They kind of have these sad looks on their faces, like, what the hell am I doing here? And Mr. Poilievre is not reading the room. He's thinking about, obviously, the leadership review that's coming, and he's got his right-wing base that he's trying to fuel up and keep happy, but it isn't, I don't think it's resonating with a lot of these members of Parliament, and it's certainly not resonating with Canadians, even though the Conservative and Liberal parties are pretty close together. But when you come to leadership, Mark Carney's like at 62%, and Mr. Poilievre is 25 points behind. That's not very good.
Yeah, to the point where the leader becomes a drag on the party because the party is outperforming Poilievre on the polls. You're going to say something.
I think it's also interesting that Steve McKinnon, though, noted that yes, there are others that they're talking to, and there are many in the Conservative caucus who disagree with Mr. Poilievre's style of leadership. But he himself also identifies it as a majority of that caucus, and I think he's right on that. I mean, we've all heard different numbers, and colleagues of ours, you know, up to the highest number I've heard is from Radio Canada, who pegged it at 20. I had around 10 to 15. Conservatives dissatisfied with the Poilievre style of leadership. But the majority of his caucus is behind him. It seems to me there's a window now, though, if caucus wants to really push him and apply some pressure between now and the leadership review, now is the time. And Michael Maw's departure will have an effect. It'll have a demoralizing effect and a rethinking effect. And look, there's been some really interesting polls out this week. Particularly one from Angus Reid that talked about how among Conservative supporters, Conservative voters, their approval and their desire, the number that thinks that there should be a change in leader, that's growing. His disapprovals among his own base is growing, and so that's shocking to me. That's really, I think, shows that Conservative MPs will think long and hard over the holidays about what they do at the leadership review and in the next session.
And the timing of it all is very important because MPs left Ottawa for their riding, and they will be meeting their constituents. And I think probably for the Conservative MPs in Toronto area or in Ontario, those who could flip, because of similarities between, policies of the Blue Liberals and Red Tories and all that, they will be, I guess, having some exchanges with their own constituents, and they may be, convinced by their own voters to switch because they like what they see in terms of policies from Mr. Carney. So this is it is, I think, it opened le barrage, the dam,
The floodgates.
And to possibly more than one more MPs joining the Liberal rank over the next few weeks.
And did you notice this week, Chris d'Entremont, the first Conservative to cross last month, he doesn't look uncomfortable in Liberal ranks. He at one point got up to ask a lob ball question, we call them, of the Liberal government as a Liberal, and he kind of took a swat at the Conservatives and made a joke about he stood up and started rhyming off Conservative talking points, and then wait, now I'm a Liberal, and then he asked his Liberal question, and it was a funny moment. Most of the House cracked up, not the Conservatives, of course, but he looked really bien dans sa peau, comfortable in his own skin as a Liberal.
Which does lead me to question, what is it about Pierre Poilievre's style? When you speak to the individual people there that may go over, they're thinking of going over, spoken to the people who might go over, what are they saying about the criticisms they're hearing about the way Mr. Poilievre runs his caucus?
Well, first of all, he likes the performance partisanship, but in many ways it comes across as very juvenile when you're dealing with a prime minister who's a technocrat, who's very serious and has laid out a very serious agenda for a country that is in the midst of a trade war with the United States. And he's doing these cheap stunts that I don't think that works very well, even on the pipeline that we saw earlier this week in the House of Commons. This is a big deal here for Alberta. If they can get the government to get a pipeline, and the MOU is much more than just a pipeline. It has involved in a lot of other things that will benefit Alberta. And he's trying to drive a wedge for political partisan purposes. I think that's the kind of stuff that hurts him in Alberta, but it hurts him across the country, because with chambers of commerces and business associations and think tanks and ordinary Canadians who are worried about the economy, when they see these kind of stunts, I think that undermines Mr. Poilievre. He doesn't not come across as a serious person. People will say, well, all he's done is spent 20-some years in Parliament. He's never done anything. And every day when he comes to the House of Commons, he seems to prove that point.
I hear slightly different criticisms within the caucus from Conservatives that I've spoken to, and it comes often down to either, in some cases, roles they don't have, that there's a focus on a very tight inner circle team of advisors, trusted advisors, that doesn't seem to broaden to include input from caucus. On the other hand, I think Mr. Poilievre also a year ago, this time a year ago, I guess, we're almost at the year point when Freeland resigned, right?
December 16.
Okay, but in around that time frame, remember Mr. Poilievre was slamming corporate Canada, slamming CEOs, businesses, lobbyists as, sort of money-grubbing influencers in Ottawa, elitists in Ottawa. And that kind of talk and that kind of downplaying and downgrading the business job-creating community in Canada also sits badly with a lot of Conservatives. So, I don't think that there's, and they don't see, the other thing I hear is that they don't see that he's learned the lessons of the last election campaign.
Well, he said as much. He said as much, right? He wasn't amending anything that his leadership style.
Everything he did is great.
And that doesn't sit well with them.
And to Tonda's point on that one, I think Mr. Poilievre has one flaws. He cannot adjust to the current political context. It has changed. doing stunts against Justin Trudeau was working fine. Doing the same thing against Mark Carney is not working, and he should adjust, I think, his strategy towards that. And he couldn't adjust during the election campaign when Mr. Trump was a big factor during the election campaign. He cannot adjust now that Mr. Carney is getting more and more comfortable being Prime Minister of Canada, and that will make his job more difficult as time goes on.
So, you touched on it a bit, but I want to now fast forward to the end of January, because that's when there's going to be a Conservative leadership review. And when you think about Joe Clark, he resigned after getting 66.9% of support at that convention, 67% if you round up. He resigns. Everyone I've been speaking to up until last night, very confident that Pierre Poilievre is going to do well at the convention level.
What number did they use?
They weren't using a number, and this is my question now. What number does he have to hit in Calgary to have a legitimacy? Losing Michael Mah, what number does he have to hit if he loses another MP in the 6 weeks between now and when Parliament returns?
Well, first of all, I think the fix is in. I think they've already fixed this convention, but for the most part, I mean, he's going to win. But I think he has to get 80% or more. If he gets less than that, I think his days are going to be numbered. Particularly if they start to lose other members of Parliament, then you're going to see this kind of stuff we saw in Joe Clark's days, where caucus feuding and people questioning the leader and calling us with information that we'll be happy to report on.
We love those calls.
It could get very, very messy. And the problem for Mr. Poilievre is that if the Prime Minister does get a majority, I mean, his way out of this is to trigger an election campaign. That's take roll of the dice and see if you can win a government. But if he gets a majority, or if the Bloc or the NDP don't want to play with Mr. Poilievre's game, the longer he stays as leader, I think the more difficult he is going to be holding on to that job.
I think Mr. Poilievre won the leadership with 70% of the points of the vote in 2022 of the party. And I have heard Conservatives say to me, 80% is the number that he has to get to solidify support, to quell caucus dissent, and to show that he is on a growth track, not a diminishing track of returns. And so, I'll take them at their word. If they want to see 80%, that's a pretty significant number, and it's not an easy target.
Yeah, and to that, when you talk about growth track, it was in that Angus Reid report where the Conservatives identified they need 1 million more votes. And so you need to attract 1 million voters outside of those who voted Conservative the last time to get them over the top.
I'm not sure about that number. I read that number. I thought that was a bit excessive. I think that there is enough swing ridings.
But it goes to your point, though, about the need to prove that you can grow the votes, not
the trend
lose
is.
Yeah.
I would say in terms of leadership result, he needs to get over 80%, as Tonda and Bob mentioned. Coming back to other leaders who resign not getting 80%, Bernard Landry of the Parti québécois resigned after getting 76%. So he sort of established also some precedent in that regard. But for Mr. Poilievre to be able to continue, 80% is the minimum he should get.
I mean, 50 plus 1 isn't going to cut it.
No. So says the Supreme Court. But, different reference.
We need a clear question.
Yeah, exactly. A clear question on leadership. Listen, I do also want to ask about the New Democrats, though, because soon after the election, the Liberals were reaching out to those New Democrats who survived the campaign to perhaps get one or two of them to go over to the government ranks. I've not heard anything on that level. I know a little bit of that came up when Chris D'Entremont crossed the floor. I haven't heard much on the NDP and reaching out to those MPs. Has anyone tracked
I'm not even
there?
sure that the Liberals are interested in
think
getting any of the Liberals. The NDP runner.
The sitting NDP caucus is not Mark Carney's kind of Liberal. The sitting Conservative caucus couldn't see themselves in Mark Carney's Liberal caucus.
When Justin Trudeau was leader of the Liberal Party, they tried to convince Alexandre Boulris, the NDP deputy leader, to join the Liberals. I know some cabinet ministers had meeting with Mr. Boulris. He said no. No, I can't imagine now Mr. Boulris joining the Liberals under Mark Carney, too right-wing for him. And so I agree, progressive conservative would be more comfortable crossing the floor than any NDP candidate right now.
Okay, so we'll watch what happens between now and when Parliament returns. Listen, this is a surprise topic. We didn't talk about this beforehand, but it occurred to me. We need to talk about Pablo Rodriguez and what's happening with him in Quebec, because his leadership of the Quebec Liberal Party is right now very much in question.
Yeah, I don't think he's going. If we're questioning whether Monsieur Poilievre will survive, federally, I think the same question with more intensity can be asked to about Pablo Rodriguez. Some people are speculating that before the end of the year he'll be gone because the Liberals will put the knife into him, and it has already started. Some former cabinet ministers in the provincial governments under Monsieur Couillard, Philippe Couillard, are saying he must go. His two opponents in the leadership race are calling for him to go. So he's got, he's basically on a trap where it's opening slowly. So it remains the timing
He's
of
holding on to the noose.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a tie. It's a tie.
So you could see the pressure immense on him to leave because the Parti libéral du Québec, the Quebec Liberal Party, is the only thing that could stop the Parti québécois from winning the next election and holding a referendum, which is, not a good thing to do while we're fighting a trade war with the United States. This is the last thing we want in Quebec.
And the Liberal Party in Quebec sees an opening, and they know that the CAQ government, the last projection, I think from 338.com, zero seats for the Legault government.
Yeah.
So that's an opportunity that the Quebec Liberal Party will want to try and capitalize.
Yeah, try and capitalize, and the timeline is shrinking because the campaign, the vote has to be held by October of next year.
Exactly, and also I wouldn't be surprised. I'm putting this on your radar that some people, influential people in Quebec, may call François-Philippe Champagne, the current finance minister, to think about going to the Liberal Party in Quebec. His name was mentioned before.
He said no.
He said no more than once. He said no. But I wouldn't be surprised if they come back to him and say, listen, we need you. You're going to be the savior. Prevent a referendum in Quebec. That's a big deal. He could be Quebec premier.
He could be like Jean Charest.
Exactly.
Called in by the Federalist forces in Quebec to serve and wave the flag.
They're looking for a
flag.
They're looking for a capable captain, and he's been identified a long time ago. Yep, all over again.
Well, I was much younger in '97. I wouldn't mind that so much. Okay, listen. So as I say, we're going to watch a lot of things to be watching, even though Parliament has risen for the holiday break. They're off for 6 weeks. But because I want to do one last one before 2025 is done for Tonda, yays and the nays. Time for that. Bob, I'll begin with you.
My yay is the government's decision to try to move ahead with high-speed rail. The initial project would be between Ottawa and Montreal, but eventually, presumably, it will be from Quebec City to Montreal, Toronto, and then into Waterloo. Countries does need a high-speed rail, especially in a country this big. All our other countries around the world have it. We don't. We should have it.
Okay. And your name?
My nay is to Premier Daniel Smith, who has overruled the Chief Electoral Officer and the courts in pushing ahead with citizen referendums. She is endangering the economy of Alberta with that. Because we're going to have a referendum on whether Alberta should stay, by the way she's going. And here you have an MOU that says to the world, come and invest in Alberta, and she's playing these kind of games. People do not invest billions of dollars in an economy if there is a risk of a referendum on separation.
Okay.
And that's a good one. My yay is for outgoing Ambassador Kristen Hillman for her tremendous service to the country on trade negotiations in Asia, the NAFTA renegotiation in the Trump first term, getting through pandemic and Joe Biden's demands that we beef up security and border spending, and now dealing again with the Trump administration through this past year. I think her counsel to the federal government under many prime ministers has been very wise. And that's a big yay for me this week. I think that Canada will miss her in the next round.
And reporters will too. She was very good.
She was well because she spoke coherently about the government's position on things and was unafraid of stating it. And I guess my nay, kind of a bit of an opposite. You know, the Trump administration laid out a national security strategy last week, which has raised alarms among many global allies of the U.S. And say what you will about a piece of paper like that and a document like that, it's very instructive. It does lay out and articulate where this administration is going. And two of the frontline cabinet ministers this week had crickets to say about it. And one hadn't even read it. The other took due note of it and will have something to say in due course. And look, I know that the Canadian government's response to some of these things has to be muted, and but they always say, we won't respond to what he says, we'll respond to what he does. Well, he's laid out a document now that sets out America for its dominance in all kinds of spheres, and I think it was incumbent on this government to respond to it.
I asked the American ambassador about that. You can see it on cpac.ca. Yeas and nays for
I just
you.
want to add something. Kirsten Lewin coming back to Canada, is she going to run a by-election to replace Chrystia Freeland and join the Liberal government? Just throwing that out there. That could be something. You know, she could enter the political arena. My yays goes to 3 provinces: Manitoba, Ontario, and PI, who will use the American liquor to sell it and to give it to charity. So that's before Christmas. I think that's a nice gesture to do. So kudos to Manitoba, Wab Kinew, Mr. Ontario, Doug Ford, and who's the premier of PI?
Well, he just stepped aside. He just stepped aside.
And my nays goes to Prime Minister Mark Carney for one reason. He skipped a lot of question period this week. So
did he ever?
Being accountable means being in the House of Commons, especially the last week of the session before Parliament rises. I thought he should have been more often in the House of Commons. He was there once out of 4 days. That's not acceptable to me.
Okay. Well, with that, let's now switch over to the look ahead, not for next week, but for the next 6 weeks. Bob?
Well, we're going to watch to see what other Liberal or Conservative MPs cross the floor to join the Liberals. I think this is not over. And the problem for us as journalists is they've learned the lesson of keeping this very, very tight. And, you know, it comes as a, we will be sitting at home.
To us.
It comes as a surprise to us. Damn!
It's under the tree. You'll find out what it is, Bob. You're looking at
a couple of things. Yes. Are there more floor crossers? And also, when are we going to see a cabinet shuffle? There's been a long-stated sort of suggestion around this town that it was going to come soon in late December, but I'm hearing more likely in January. And there's also a larger shuffle as well going on at the senior ranks of the public service. So what stamp is Carney still trying to put on this government is going to be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to say the appointment of the new ambassador to the United States, but Bob, has got with sources said it's going to happen next week, and it's going to be Mark Wiseman. So because he could be a political figure that is controversial, not a political figure, but an ambassador that is controversial in Quebec because of past statements. And I'll be also watching whether more Tories will have contact with political reality, that it might be better to be in the Liberal government, like Mr. Michael Mah decided to do.
We should mention that, January, most of January, the House isn't sitting, but and right after it comes back, Poilievre will have to face his review. So they'll be active. We'll be seeing a lot of Conservative news over the next month, 6 weeks.
And this Prime Minister never stops working, so goodness knows what will befall us.
Okay, just not Christmas Day and New Year's Eve, please, and thank you. But listen, very quickly, you didn't ask me, but I really have no nay about this panel, but I do have a lot of yays for the 3 of you. Thank you for another season. I adore you guys. You put me on the spot sometimes.
I want to see him cry.
Well, I really hope that touches your heart because I bought none of you gifts. But anyway.
But your producer brought us some chocolate. She brought us
Oh,
chocolate.
Maureen making me look bad once again. Okay, listen, Bob, Tonda, JD, thank you very much. You've been listening to the Bureau Chiefs with Michael Serapio, a Primetime Politics podcast from CPAC. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again later in January.